Coming up next on Arizona Horizon's Journalist Roundtable, we'll discuss Donald Trump coming to Phoenix and the impact it will have on the GOP race. And new polls show that education is the #1 issue for Arizona voters. Those stories and more on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon's Journalist Roundtable. I'm Steve Goldstein in for Ted Simons. Joining us tonight, Aaliyah Rao of the Arizona Republic, Mike Sunnix of the Phoenix Business Journal, and Hank Stevenson of the Arizona Capital Times. Donald Trump is coming to Phoenix Saturday to discuss his controversial political beliefs. Aaliyah, why is Donald Trump coming specifically to Phoenix?
I think it's kind of he's riding this wave of the immigration. He's made huge news. He's getting some attention in the polls. So if you're going to talk immigration, where else come but Arizona?
So City of Phoenix officials have expressed some displeasure at the fact that Trump has moved from the Biltmore to downtown Phoenix. Does that have any traction?
I think there's just some general concern about how many people are going to come. You're adding protesters to that, and just sort of what kind of a chaos it's going to cause, what the impact is to Phoenix. You know, you've got the governor who's gone out of his way to sort of keep Arizona out of the national news, and here's Trump bringing it right back to center stage.
Mike, Trump is a reality show star. This feels like a reality show in a sense. Is there going to be any depth to this conversation, this speech he might give?
Well, I mean, he's sucking all the energy, all the oxygen out of the presidential race right now. He's getting more attention than Hillary, more than Jeb, more than anybody else. I mean, he's drawn eyeballs and viewers, and the cable news networks and the newspapers are all over this because people are interested in what he has to say. There's kind of a vacuum in the Republican side. There's not a lot of, Jeb Bush is out there. He's kind of you're not really sure whether he's how much his heart's in it. Got a lot of very crowded race. And here's Trump that doesn't talk like a politician, talks like a tough guy. And if you talk to the base out there, the Fox News viewers, conservatives, they want a Republican to run against Hillary that's on the offense and stuff. They've been on the defense, you know, for the last 2 cycles, and so he talks to that, and he's tapped in, you know, to that kind of immigration boil that has been kind of off the front burner for a while, but now it's kind of back.
Do you buy him, though, as a legitimate candidate? As you said, we're at least 6 months away from the first caucus, the first primary as it is. Do you expect him to be in the race by that point?
Well, I think if you talk to the political class and folks that cover this, you expect somebody like him to be gone, you know, by next year. But who knows? I mean, he's got his own money. He's good with the media. He's had the missteps with the comments, but he's a lot of access out there. He's getting all kinds of earned media on this. And there, you know, we like celebrities in this country, and he is a celebrity. And if you look at the, you know, other aspects of society, entertainment, sports, celebrity does something for you.
But even if he stays in this race, I mean, I think there's very, very little chance that he's going to win a nomination. I mean, I would be amazed if he won the presidential primary in Arizona, let alone, you know, nationally.
The immigration-related comments, though, do you think those will gain traction? Is he someone who has put that issue back on the front burner, and will it force people to talk about it?
I think absolutely it already has. I mean, we had Jan Brewer coming out of her backyard garden yesterday to comment on it on CNN. She talked to our paper. I mean, it very much pushes that issue back into the forefront and forces everyone else to react to Donald Trump, no matter what it is he's talking about. Then, you know, everybody else has to give some sort of comment to his comment, which is a really bizarre phenomenon.
If you see a lot of people in the base, they're frustrated with the field. It's crowded. A lot of folks that are running, looks like they're running for a Fox News show more than nomination, or selling a book. The front runner, Jeb Bush, is another Bush. There's fatigue with that within the Republican Party. They're tired of the dynasty, and he's not exactly been the most forthright, aggressive candidate out there, even though he's raised a lot of money. So here comes Trump, who's a celebrity, he's got name ID, attracts people to the race and to watching this that aren't interested in politics a little bit. And so he's kind of a fresh face and obviously says very controversial things that make for good copy and make for good news telecasts. And so I think he's filling a void right now. Whether that lasts, you know, is certainly the big question. And his stances on some social issues in the past have not been very conservative. He's, you know, voiced support for abortion rights, same-sex marriage, universal health care in the past. And so, you know, he doesn't have that kind of political record that's kind of maybe as pure as some conservatives like, but certainly in immigration, he's touching a chord.
And I think that does go back to this underlying, we've been very quiet on immigration for the past, you know, 3, 4, 6 months. And it's something that really is important to a lot of people in Arizona. And I think there's some legitimate frustration that it isn't being talked about. So to throw it out there, to let Arizona get back in the middle, you know, he may not be a legitimate candidate in a lot of places, but I think in Arizona he potentially could be.
But it's one thing to have a legitimate conversation about border security and immigration. It's another thing to throw out these really hateful comments against an entire country of people, which, you know, it puts him on a stage with people like Arpaio, which the rest of the GOP is kind of shunning at this point. I mean, there's been national stories that are super interesting about, you know, top GOP leaders calling up Donald Trump and saying, hey, cool it. You're making the rest of us look bad.
But look how far the issue has taken Arpaio, and look how far the issue took Brewer. I mean, it does create legitimate candidates in Arizona.
But also, could that help the candidates who are running against him in the primary? I mean, could it help a Jeb Bush where he comes across as the moderate as opposed to he's going to run as a conservative and then have to go to the middle if, in fact, he wins the nomination?
I think in the primary it makes it difficult because you do want to be the moderate. In the general, it definitely could, but I don't know about the primary.
Mike, what about what some of Arizona's prominent Republicans are saying about Trump? John McCain, Jeff Flake, even Glenn Hammer of the Chamber of Commerce aren't that excited about the comments that Hank referenced?
Jeff Flake, made some efforts to distance the Republican Party here from Trump in the event, and it's the Maricopa Republican Party that's putting on, not the state party. And you mentioned Glenn Hammer and kind of that business wing of the party, the Jeb Bush, Mitt Romney, GPL ring here in Phoenix, that they want immigration in the rearview mirror. They don't want 1070. They don't want Arpaio or Russell Pierce or these types of images going out to the country. And then here comes Donald Trump come to downtown Phoenix with a lot of protesters, a lot of immigration hawks in his camp going to be there. And so I think there's a lot of hand-wringing in the business wing over this. Plus the tourism folks, they don't want the image of Arizona this, but this is an issue that the base, cares about. They've cared about it for a long time. They look at the outreach that the kind of the middle of the GOP is doing towards Latinos as kind of misguided because they think they're going to vote mostly for Democrats anyways. And there's arguments on both sides of that, but I think the conservatives see immigration as kind of an issue where they can be on the offense against the Democrats.
It's interesting though with Glenn Hammer, for example, in the business community, they were criticized for sort of closing the barn door if the horse had gotten out with SB 1070. So, Hank, do you think this is sort of a way of sort of making a preemptive strike in a sense?
I think they've been doing that on a lot of fronts. I mean, Ducey's big trip to Mexico City last month, I think it was something that they put out 3-4 editorials on in the Republic. I mean, this is something they're really very actively trying to change the debate on. And then, Ducey's not going to be at this event, but he, at the same time, still hasn't put out any statement about Donald Trump and what he thinks of him coming here or what he thought about his statements specifically on, Mexico and immigration, which is interesting to see him just being very quiet about it. Doesn't want to be involved in this.
Aaliyah, let's move on to the GOP Senate primary. Next Tuesday, a state lawmaker named Kelly Ward is going to announce her plans, we think, to run against John McCain for the U.S. Senate. What should we know about Kelly Ward? Where has she gained some traction in the legislature?
She is kind of, related to this conversation, among the Tea Party conservative Republicans in the legislature. She's in the Senate. She's a physician. She's come in on a lot of education stuff. I think she chaired the education committee this session and really got very involved in the Common Core issue, some of the kind of fundamental conservative issues, and she's really started to make a name for herself in that arena.
Kelly Ward was involved.
Why is she running though?
She thinks she can beat John McCain, which is a heck of a tall order. I mean, I think there were some polls earlier in the year that showed John McCain's favorability rating within, likely Republican primary voters is very low, but still taking him out is darn near impossible. I mean, he's got as much money as he needs to run this campaign. Kelly Ward has none. He's got name ID internationally. Kelly Ward has none. It's going to be an uphill battle that she will likely lose.
She was one of the Republican conservatives that fought the Medicaid expansion favored by Brewer. And I do think this really fits into the Donald Trump thing, because if there's a wave in the Republican Party towards anti-immigration, anti-immigrant sentiments, towards border security, towards this kind of right-wing Tea Party wave, she could ride that and potentially have some legs that we don't expect in the race against McCain, who's been an advocate of immigration reforms, a guest worker program, a legal path in the past. And there's some folks on the Republican side that have had frustrations with McCain for a number of years, and they haven't been able to find a good outlet. J.D. Hayworth wasn't the guy to do it back in 2010. Right. So maybe she's the one. She's going to be at a big disadvantage.
But are we going to see McCain again pull out the build the dang fence thing? He's been criticized for sort of going back and forth on the issue of immigration. He denies that, of course. But if you look at the ads and whatnot, Is Kelly Ward potentially a strong enough candidate to make him do that? Or do you think he can sort of rest on his laurels to some extent?
I think you'll see him get pushed on immigration. The way things look right now, he'll get pushed on immigration. It's an issue that the base, the conservative base, doesn't see any action out of the Republicans in Washington on that or a lot of issues. I think that's why they're looking for a guy like Trump who says, I'm a tough guy, I'm going to go in there and do things that these politicians aren't doing. We've been talking about immigration reform since George W. Bush. Mm-hmm. We've tried immigration reform before. Nobody seems to be happy with it. So it could push McCain a little bit on that.
I'm wondering as well, any big name candidates? We kept hearing about Matt Salmon, David Schweikert. Is anybody hearing news that those people actually might run against McCain?
Nothing official. I mean, there's lots of conversations. There's all kinds of conversations about former lawmakers and who might jump in and would Sinema jump in and on the other side and kind of where would all they go. And I think it's too early to get too serious about any of it at this point. And
Congressional District 1, which is Ann Kirkpatrick, has left that seat to challenge John McCain. A poll came out, Hank, this week indicating that Paul Babeu, the Pinal County Sheriff, of course it was done by a supporter and someone who actually works for Paul Babeu, the poll indicated that Babeu is a strong candidate to win the Republican primary in that district. Paul Babeu had some controversial issues that forced him out in the past from running for Congress. Do you think voters will forgive and forget?
They may forgive, but there's no way they're going to forget. I mean, the pictures of him taking selfies in the bathroom mirror in his underwear will be all over your TV screens come, November next year, or probably earlier than that, I guess August next year when the primary is. He's a good candidate in a lot of respects. He's a, tough guy who's really liked down there in Pinal County. That's a huge part of the Republican vote for that district. He's well liked out there. He's got the law enforcement background. But a couple of those negative ads running nonstop on your TV will drop him down very seriously. And this poll, as you said, was paid for by his consultant, and it showed him just running away with this race, which is interesting. I mean, the not even close second in this poll was Ken Bennett, who is a former Secretary of State, who is looking more and more like he's going to actually get into this race, which would kind of make it a little bit more interesting. He's got some roots up in the Prescott area. Mm-hmm. So he would kind of have the northern feel where Pinal County is in the southern part of the district. Could be an interesting two-way race, but I just have a hard time believing that he can recover from something like that in a big district.
Well, it's such a spread out district. It's a rural district. The Navajo Nation was key to Ann winning those races. There's not a big media market. I mean, they'll run ads in Phoenix, but most of the people seeing those ads will never vote in that race. And Babeu does have name ID. Obviously, if there's somebody like Bennett in there, he probably will run a lot of negative stuff if it's kind of more of a head-to-head thing. But it could be very crowded, and it'd be interesting to see how demographic changes. A lot of growth in the past few decades down in Pinal County, more suburban, obviously more part of the valley. The rest of the area is obviously rural, and so we'll see what kind of hubs of voters and centers of voters kind of coalesce around anybody there. It could be very interesting, much like when they created the district for Renzi, back in 2000, 2002. It was very crowded. Renzi didn't have big name ID, and he kind of came out of nowhere and won that seat.
Ali, what stands out to me about Babeu is that unlike, let's say, Andy Tobin or Gary Keeney, Babeu's a very good communicator, and he likes media, and he likes talking. Can that really be a plus in a campaign for him, do you think?
I think so. I mean, depends on the day whether he likes media and which media it might be. But yes, he knows how to kind of work the public circuit. He's active in the media. He's outspoken. He's very well spoken. Yeah, he knows what people want to hear. He's good with the soundbite. I think that helps him tremendously. I know Bennett got a lot of criticism when he ran for governor as kind of being the very, somewhat quiet, vanilla candidate. He didn't make a lot of splashes. Babeu will be out there getting the attention.
Hank, I'm wondering, you referenced the Babeu situation, taking the selfies and whatnot. Immigration has been, in the past, a strong issue for him, but part of that controversy was the alleged relationship with an undocumented immigrant. Mm-hmm. If he tries to go too much on immigration, do you see that hurting him?
It hasn't hurt him thus far. He hasn't backed off the issue any since, whenever that was a couple of years back when the whole story kind of broke about his relationship with an immigrant from Mexico. It never slowed him down in the past. I don't think it'll slow him down in the future. As far as him talking about it, it maybe hurts his credibility a little bit on the issue, but it hasn't stopped him from talking about it, making it, one of his major points.
I think one dynamic you see come up is Bennett's run statewide. You know, for Secretary of State, obviously ran unsuccessfully in the Republican primary for governor. Babu's been a Pinal County guy, and you know, he hasn't really run a larger campaign. And this is almost a statewide type campaign, considering the geography and the diversity of the district.
Aaliyah, considering 4 of the last 6 years that seat's been held by a Democrat, are there any named Democrats we should know about who might run in that race?
That's a good question.
Drawing a blank, right?
Drawing a blank.
The Democrats don't have a bench, not a real bench anyway, in that race. As of now, you know, we're a year and something away from it. There's been some names kind of talked about. I know that Catherine Miranda, a Phoenix Democrat, was kind of talking about maybe running for the seat. She doesn't live in the district. There's been a handful of other people who have been talked about.
Liz Archuleta up in Flagstaff. And a couple other, you know, folks in the Navajo Nation, and then it's obviously state lawmakers and stuff. But that's going to be the interesting thing, is because there isn't big benches really on either side on this. Bennett Babu are kind of a little more household names, but the Democrats don't have that kind of household name that can jump in there and get that. But it's a diverse district, and Ann Kirkpatrick won up there, and you got the Navajo Nation if they can turn out a lot of votes, and there's some more liberal areas, Coconino County, where they have a little more legs than the Republicans.
And that's a seat in the past where, if I remember right, Bruce Babbitt's brother tried to run. Fred Duvall, actually the Democratic gubernatorial nominee, tried to run there and was not able to get it done either. Ali, let's move on to a new poll that says education is the #1 issue for Arizona voters. You could have knocked me over with a feather. I guess I would have thought that would have been the case, but apparently not. Apparently that's a change. Who did the poll? What can you tell us about it?
It is. This was an education group, so they have a little bit of a focus on kind of more money for education and that issue. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's something that a lot of people are talking about. It's something that people have talked about in the past, but in the past couple of years, probably we've seen, you know, the budget and the economy and jobs and even immigration kind of jump ahead of education. And now we are very clearly, at least according to this poll, kind of focused on the education issue. People are saying there's not enough money. People are saying the system is going completely in the wrong direction. People are indicating some support for Governor Ducey's state land trust funding plan, but just a real focus on education. What are we going to do about it? We need to talk about it. How are we going to fix it?
Does it seem like, at least based on the poll results, that even if people aren't sure exactly how the money should be spent, does it seem pretty clear most people think the state should spend more money on education?
Yes. And there's even some talk in the poll about, you know, should lower income schools get more money based on the students' needs? So there's a lot of conversation about, you know, more money and what are some options and kind of how do we spend it to the biggest benefit.
Hank, is this the kind of thing that could generate activity at the legislature?
I think so, to some degree. I mean, maybe not the poll, but the fact that, you know, it is much more on the minds of the average Arizonan. I think it's been, you know, a couple of really bad months as far as like media coverage goes for education. There was the survey not too long ago that showed Arizona in the bottom of the nation for pupil funding, which I think really drove home a point that was maybe, you know, on the back burner a little bit before that. I think the conversation kind of changed more in regard to that, and now we're seeing that in this poll.
Yeah, it's interesting to see whether all this, what happens from this. You know, you ask people if we should give more money to lower income schools, poor neighborhoods, and people say yes, until it takes it from their school system and their district. Should we spend more money on education? I think everybody agrees we should. But how do we do that? Do you raise taxes? What taxes do you raise? Who gets taxed? Then it starts to erode a little bit. And it's a whole different dynamic down at the legislature, which has their own agenda on education and spending and taxes that kind of works against that. But I do agree that the media coverage, the budget cuts from the universities especially, the report that showed us bottom in a lot of categories in terms of per capita spending and teacher pay and those type of things, is driving us a little bit. So education, you ask people if people like education, spending want more. Generally, broadly, they say yes. Specifically, you get in the weeds a little bit.
And Hank, the legislature still wants to fight the lawsuit that says the state underfunded districts. It always seems like, I don't want to say hypocrisy, though I just did, but there's a contradictory aspect to this, isn't there?
Well, I think, you know, their position is we just don't have the money. They're not able or willing to raise taxes, and so, you know, they're still fighting or negotiating on how much to pay this over this suit. But, you know, it's going to take a lot more than even what this suit is offering. Even the maximum of this wouldn't move the needle all that much. You know, we've got some serious. If you want to get into the national average of per pupil funding, it's a serious chunk of change. And Ducey's land reform isn't going to fix that. This lawsuit isn't going to fix that. It's going to take a major overhaul if we ever want to get there, which may not even be the goal.
Well, I think we are waiting to see what Ducey is going to do with his education plan. He said the land trust is just one tiny little piece. He's got a group together that are supposed to be developing a plan to completely overhaul the education funding system. We are very eagerly awaiting to see what that would look like, and I think that will drive the legislative conversation next session. Whether it's a success or a failure, I think it depends on the plan, but it'll be an interesting conversation.
Finally, on this topic, any expectations for dueling ballot initiatives, something that might extend to sales tax? Has there been any buzz about that?
Ducey has made it very clear he's not interested in any other proposals. I think that's tamped things down a little bit. The education folks seem to be sort of waiting to see on a few things. You add too many things, you start causing confusion, everybody votes no and nothing wins. So I think there's a question of what do you do, when, and what does it look like?
Mike, prison riots in Kingman, let's move on to that topic. Governor Ducey actually visited the prison, looked into it. There's been interesting chatter at the Capitol on the private prison issue. Majority of state lawmakers has supported private prisons. Any thought that something like this could change the direction of that? The fact that people are seeing several days of riots, they're seeing all this damage, or would a skeptic say these are convicted felons?
Well, this is the prison that had trouble before, had the escape up in Kingman, where the folks escaped, ended up killing a couple, I think, in New Mexico. It was a big story a few years ago. And there's always a lot of scrutiny of private prisons about how they're operating. Is there any cronyism going on in terms of who gets the contract? You know, are they cheap compared to operating in a cheaper manner in terms of staffing and guards and professionalism than state-run prisons? So there's always media scrutiny of that. This legislature, this state government, and the Republicans has been pro-privatization every step of the way. I don't see a major shift in that. You might see a little more oversight. You know, they're obviously going to do an investigation in this thing, but you may see some pushes for some more oversight. But this is a very partisan issue. Republicans like private prisons, like privatization. Democrats don't. And so that divide seems to always pop up, and you can't seem to get enough Republicans to leave the reservation on that to change the issue.
But this year you did kind of see that dynamic change at the beginning of the legislative session. One of the things Ducey proposed and then shelved was adding 3,000 new private prison beds. And you saw people like Arpaio and people like Babiou talking about, we don't need new private prisons, you can send them to our jails. So I think you've started to see a little bit of change on the issue as far as, you know, just the standard, which it has been for years. Republicans support and Democrats oppose private prisons. I think that, you know, Ducey was to some degree kind of listening to those county sheriffs, and it wasn't just Republican county sheriffs, but people who said, we've got other options. We don't need to build new private prisons. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's slowly changing. I wouldn't expect a very different thing in the coming legislative session, but it seems to be a little bit different than we've seen in the past.
Aaliyah, let's go to Twitter, where Attorney General and Acting Governor Mark Brnovich was taking suggestions. Did you notice, did he get any fun ones, any good ones?
He did. He got a good combination. Basically what happened was the governor was on vacation. Secretary of State was out of state for a convention, I believe. And so he was, for 48 hours, I think, in charge of the state. He got a letter from each one saying, hey, and realized, oops, I'm in charge. So he went to Twitter, sent out a note saying, give me some suggestions. He had a lot of people asking for more money for education. So a lot of serious conversation on that. A lot of people asking for some immigration-related issues. Bow out of the lawsuit challenging in-state tuition for students. Get out of the driver's license issue. But then we also had some fun ones. We had a request for a Grateful Dead Day because I believe he had recently been at the farewell concert in Chicago. So he had promised, I think he did a fake Grateful Dead Day for that one. So that was kind of fun. And a few other ones asking for ice cream for the day and a little nod to Ducey and some other stuff like that.
And haters gonna hate. I saw somebody ask him to resign. I mean, it was kind of, did you guys see the Ask Bobby hashtag, Bobby Jindal? Oh, it was great. I lost my productivity for a whole afternoon just laughing at this. Bobby Jindal had tweeted out, you know, Ask Bobby, and using the Ask Bobby hashtag. And it was one of those things that failed spectacularly. I mean, all the questions were sarcastic, and I was expecting the Brnovich thing to go a little bit more in that direction, but it did stay more or less civil on Twitter.
Mike, just a few seconds left. Are we at a point now where we really need an acting governor with all the high-tech situations?
Oh,
Couldn't Governor Ducey?
It's kind of silly. We're not in stagecoach days anymore. But you know, Mark's got some good political instincts. He's kind of outside the box. He's certainly very conservative on some issues, but you know, he does reach out to people in other camps, and he does kind of he goes against the mold a little bit.
Guys, thanks for the discussion. Appreciate it. Monday on Arizona Horizon, we'll talk more about Donald Trump's visit to Phoenix and the pros and cons of his political strategy, and hear about Governor Doug Ducey's plan to help fund education. Those stories and more Monday on Arizona Horizon. I'm Steve Goldstein, sitting in for Ted Simons. Have a great weekend.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.